Welcome to week number 7 of R2 F2 Prognostication. I am your man, Robbie Russell, and let me get right to week 7. But before I start that, I just have to make a little note here that week 6 last week just may have been my worst week ever with my predictions. Last week I said bench Vernon Davis, don't start him, I don't like him. He only puts up 38 points, no biggie. And then I don't like Matthew Stafford. No biggie again. He only puts up 28. And then on the flip side, I said I like Tony Romo. Thank you, Tony. 11.5 points. And Garrett Graham at the tight end position, 4.5 points. Anyways, needless to say, I was probably down here at the bottom last week. The only way to go is up. So, hopefully with week 7, I should bounce back nicely as I'm down here at the bottom. Speaking of week 7, let me get it rolling right with the quarterbacks. I'm sure you're looking for a Drew Brees fill-in. I know on a few of my teams I had Brees and I have Matt Schaub. I drafted Matt Schaub thinking, it'd be okay for a Drew Brees buy fill-in. Not necessarily, but if you're looking for that Brees by fill-in, look at Eli Manning, who takes center stage in the Monday Night Football special at home against the Vikings. Now, those Vikings are giving up an average of 25.2 points to opposing quarterbacks on the road this season. They've given up 5 combined touchdowns between those two games as well. Now, the Vikings' problem is they cannot pressure the quarterback to make those mistakes. And even last week, although it was at home, Cam Newton put up 3 scores against those Vikings, and they only had 1 sack. Now, I know Newton's a more mobile quarterback than Eli, but nonetheless, I still like Eli. And even if you look at his, not really success, because it's far from success that Eli's had against Minnesota, but in 5 career games against the Vikings, Eli is averaging 202 passing yards per game with 3 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. This dude does not fare well against the Vikings. However, this is a whole different Vikings team than it has been in the past. I think it's going to be a little bit of a lopsided game. I really think the Giants get their first win. Freeman is starting for the Vikings, so it could possibly become a shootout. But nonetheless, I see Eli putting up 30 points. Now, other quarterbacks, if you don't have Eli on your bench, or if he's not available in your league, I like Nick Foles, as it's looking like Michael Vick is gonna miss another game. He's not gonna start this week, and with Dallas surrendering the most points to the quarterback position through the first 6 weeks, Nick Foles should put up good numbers. Others are Chad Henne, who's developing chemistry really nice with Justin Blackmon, and it's the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're going to be behind. They're going to be throwing the ball. Jay Cutler, Mike Glennon, who I had last week and put up respectable numbers. Not great, but respectable numbers. But Mike Glennon this week gets the 7th worst defense against the pass of the Atlanta Falcons. And he's probably going to get Mike Williams back. So I like Glennon a lot this week. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to do it again. Tony Romo, I like this week. Please don't let me down, Tony, again after you just did Sunday night. Thank you. But Tony Romo should bounce back nicely. That's going to be a divisional shootout game against the Eagles. So Mike Glennon put up respectable numbers last week. I expect Tony to bounce back nicely and put up more than 11.5 points. Now, quarterbacks that I'm not really high on this week is Carson Palmer, Sam Bradford, Andy Dalton, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick, and Joe Flacco. Moving on to the running backs. Ryan Matthews and Danny Woodhead. Now, the Chargers duo here, they travel from the west coast of San Diego all the way to the east coast to take on the worst rush defense of the Jacksonville Jaguars on Sunday afternoon. Now, keep in mind, this Jags defense has succumbed to an average of 21.5 points to opposing running backs on the entire season. Ryan Matthews is coming off of his first 100-yard rushing game since week 14 of 2011. Congratulations, Ryan. Now, does that mean we have to wait till early 2015 for you to rush over 100 yards again? Who knows? Nonetheless, I don't know if he's going to rush for over 100. He could put up a touchdown. He could very well rush over 100. I see him continuing the momentum. As I said, maybe San Diego gets up by quite a load in the fourth, and that's going to spell for Ryan Matthews to eventually, hopefully, break one, if not rack the yards up. That other guy that I mentioned, Danny Woodhead, he's huge in PPR leagues. Actually, in PPR leagues, he should be considered now a borderline running back 1. So if you have either of them, I'd start them this Sunday. Running backs that are also on my sleeper list for week 7 is D'Angelo Williams, Eddie Lacy, Brandon Jacobs, after Jacobs is coming off a pretty nice performance where he ran for over 100 yards. Matt Forte, Ray Rice, Chris Johnson, Joseph Randall, who's going to be starting in Dallas for the injured DeMarco Murray, Noshawn Moreno, Bilal Powell, who may not score, but he'll put up good yardage, I believe, and Giovanni Bernard, who faces off against the fourth worst rush defense of the Detroit Lions and should earn more touches after his 21-point performance in fantasy football this past Sunday against the Buffalo Bills. Now, moving to the people I don't like at the running back position, Trent Richardson, who faces off against the stingiest rush defense and who has yet to rush for over 60 yards since joining the Indianapolis Colts. Marshawn Lynch is in a tricky situation, in my opinion, because if you look back at last year, both games against the Cardinals, he rushed for over 85 yards in one game. I think it was 85, 86 yards in the first game last season. And the second game, he ran for 128 yards on 11 carries and scored 3 times. But fast forward to this year, the Cardinals defense, they ranked 4th in the least amount of fantasy points given up to running backs. They're 5th against the run, and they've only given up 2 rushing touchdowns. The only way Marshawn Lynch, I believe, gets his points is in garbage time. But I'm going to take a gamble on Lynch and say look for another option at the running back position, if all possible. To wrap up the running back bench list is Stephen Ridley, Willis McGahee, Le'Veon Bell, Jacquizz Rodgers, and Reggie Bush, only if you own him in a non-PPR league. Dallas wide receivers. I'd start all the Dallas wide receivers, and yes, this includes Miles Austin. As I mentioned earlier, I'm expecting Romo to have a bounce-back game this Sunday in Philadelphia. Now, he can't possibly let me down 2 weeks in a row. So, put in perspective how bad the Eagles' defense is. They're surrendering a whopping 35.4 points to opposing wide receivers this season. And to let you know how bad that is, only the Buffalo Bills are the only other team to allow over 30-plus points to wide receivers. I believe Miles Austin has a nice bounce-back game. He was targeted 4 times in that Redskins game, but he didn't have a catch. But again, to show you how bad that game was, Dez Bryant was targeted 8 times, and yet he only caught the ball 5 times for a lousy 36 yards. Not bad, as he averaged 7 yards a catch, but usually when you see a caliber wide receiver such as Dez Bryant catch 5 passes, you'd think it's maybe 50 yards or so. But expect Dez Miles Austin and Terrence Williams bounce back nicely this Sunday and produce better numbers. Now, in addition to that Dallas Cowboy receiving core, you have to go on the other side of the ball there in the same game and start Riley Cooper. Now, Cooper, he seems to have a nice connection with Nick Foles, and with Foles, like I said, getting the start again against the division rival Cowboys, who, by the way, that defense is tied for the most receiving touchdowns given up this season. And if you take a look at last season, in both games, Nick Foles did have a touchdown even when he was the number 3 wide receiver. So I like Riley Cooper as a sleeper wide receiver this week. And other sleepers that should be in your lineup that you could take a gamble on should produce nicely: Harry Douglas, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. If he does play, he was limited at practice today. I believe he's going to play, but keep a close eye on that as kickoff Sunday rolls around. Justin Blackmon, Greg Jennings. You know, the Giants' defense isn't well. Freeman stepping in. I like the chemistry that he could have with the veteran in Jennings. Josh Gordon, Aaron Dobson, and Mike Wallace of the Miami Dolphins. Just a few wide receivers you may want to bench this week is Larry Fitz, Andre Johnson, Anquan Bolden, all the Rams wide receivers, and all the Seahawk wide receivers. And last but not least is Eric Decker. Now, as I mentioned, you're probably heard maybe if you have Drew Brees, you're looking for a quarterback. Well, same thing at the tight end. The best tight end's on the bye. He did get injured. We don't know how serious it is. The Saints are hoping he'll be back next week after their bye week. But if you're looking for a Jimmy Graham fill-in for this upcoming week, I'd look at Martellus Bennett of the Chicago Bears or Jeff Cumberland of the Jets. Geno Smith's going to have to throw the ball against the Patriots. No ifs, ands, or buts. Kellen Winslow's gone. Cumberland's coming in as the tight end. Scott Chandler of the Buffalo Bills and Heath Miller of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's starting to rack up the catches, starting to become that security blanket we all know him to known him to be as for Ben Roethlisberger. To wrap up with the defenses, a few that I like this week, as I've mentioned every week, Kansas City. If Matt Schaub doesn't play, they're going to have a field day with TJ Yates back there. Seattle, tomorrow night against the Cardinals, Carson Palmer, that whole offense. Baltimore, Carolina, and Tennessee. That will do it for week number 7 of R2 F2 Prognostication. As always, I just want to thank everybody for their support. As I mentioned, I can't do any worse than week 6, so good luck to everybody in week 7. I'll see you right back here next week, and until then, I'm Robbie Russell. Have a good week 7.